In Strange Darling, a man with a rifle hunts down a woman with deadly intent. Who these characters are is revealed as the film progresses, but this really is one where you shouldn't know too much before watching. Are the reveals satisfying? Let's find out. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Howdy do.
This is a movie podcast, a horror movie podcast, in fact. And today we are talking about another 2024 release, although it's listed as 2023, but it didn't really come out until 2024 for the publics. And that is Strange Darling, another one that got some buzz last year. So I was very curious to check this out. It is definitely one of those movies that most of the premise is kind of kept under wraps to try, to kind of like skirt the audience away from figuring out what's going on, because it's twisty and it's turning. It's got some swerves, but we'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers, and of course, if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch if you do. And of course, you can support the content and get some more bonus stuff over at Patreon. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the show. So, did you know much about this, Tim?
No. Like you said, I've been hearing good buzz, but then, the thing I'd heard most often was, don't read up on anything before going in. Like, it's best to go in completely cold and not know what it is. I don't know if I even saw the trailer, because I think people said like, oh yeah, I shouldn't even watch the trailer. So it's one of those movies. Yeah.
Kyle Gallner's in it, who he was in a little bit of Smile 2, which we did recently. He was more in the first one. But he's popped up on a bunch of things in the last few years. He was in Scream 5, and he goes all the way back in my memory. He was like the Bart Allen in Smallville. I want to say,
really?
Yeah, back when he was a teenager. But
there's a random movie I recently saw with him. I think it's a couple years old at this point, but I think it was called Dinner in America, which I liked quite a bit.
Yeah, he's just I don't really feel particularly strongly about him. Like, he's not bad, but I've also never been blown away by him. But he
I like him, but he does seem. I mean, I don't know if he's kind of one note or if he's just playing very similar roles, but he's always like the very intense kind of guy. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, I think he does it well, but I'd be interested, to see him like, with something a little different.
Yeah. And then Willa Fitzgerald plays the other main character, because the characters are actually just titled The Lady and the Demon. That is what they're given in the credits. Which, fair enough. And actually, speaking of things that it does in the credits, did you notice something unique about the opening titles, Tim?
If I did, I have already forgotten it.
Well, it proudly announces to the audience that it was shot.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was shot in 35mm film. It tells us that at the start, which is very. Yeah. I don't know how I feel, because I like movies being shot on film, but do I want my movies to announce it? I don't know. That's a bit weird.
Yeah, I'm going to save it for when we get into the meat of the discussion, because it kind of plays into a larger point that I have.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we're about to get to that question anyway, because there's not much we can say about the plot, really, in the spoiler-free section. But, yeah, as far as basic premise goes, I don't even know if I should say much other than just, man is hunting woman. It's tense. The movie's split into chapters. It kind of jumps around the timeline. It doesn't go in order. So you get like chapter headings. So it actually starts on chapter 3, for example, and then it starts to kind of jump around as it sees fit. So, yeah. But without further ado, Tim, how did you feel about Strange Darling?
So I'd really been looking forward to this, and like you said, it had gotten some buzz and stuff. And this is when I was actually trying to make it out to the theater to see it, but ended up not getting the chance. So I'm glad we're finally tackling it. And And again, like when we're talking about hype and stuff, like I've had some people where I feel like they've been like, oh, like this is like my favorite movie of the year. So yeah, definitely anticipating this one. And then I gotta say, I kind of have some mixed feelings about it. Like overall, I'd say I'm positive. Like I didn't dislike it. But what we have here is, and again, it's hard to bring up without the spoilers, but let's say there's maybe like a gimmick or something to the movie that I think is, very interesting. And it's like, okay, this is something I haven't seen before. So I like what they're doing here, but I don't know if it's like a vibes thing. And this is where like, the 35 millimeter thing kind of comes in. But I do feel like at points the movie is like trying too hard to be cool. Do you know what I mean? like there's, I think it looks very good. The soundtrack's good, the performers are good, but there are times where I'm watching it and I'm kind of just like, all right, I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe it's up its own ass a little bit. And like, and I don't know if that's like too harsh, but I don't know. Maybe it's just like a feeling I got from it or something. But I mean, that aside, I would still say that I enjoyed it. Like, I definitely didn't hate it or anything. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of like a weird feeling that I have where it's like, all right, maybe you're just trying like a little too hard or something. But I mean, I would still recommend it. Like, I enjoyed it. So that's where I'm at. It's, again, it's kind of really hard to talk like without spoilers. So
yeah. So I actually, for the most part, the movie was working for me. Because it's shot well, right? It's well directed. It's I think that the chapters is a fun way to jump around, even if the big title cards, it feels like it's really trying to be like, oh, I'm like a new Tarantino. I'm going to do the Tarantino gimmicks.
It felt
kind of thing.
very Tarantino-esque.
Yeah, trying to do that kind of thing, and that's fine and all that. For me, like I think I was pretty into it. But two things towards the end and like the final like 30 minutes or so kind of made me get a little bit more mixed or underwhelmed. One of which was just that I didn't think the conclusion to the story was all that, interesting. Ultimately, it just kind of, it felt like it just sort of, petered out, and that was about it.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, the other thing is that I think that the movie brings up a lot of serious subjects thematically, right? And it has some sort of like more direct scenes that kind of relate to those subjects towards the end, and I think they're handled poorly. Well, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to be a big discussion here, because I am kind of curious, like, ultimately, what is the message of this movie? Because, again, there's kind of like there's like an interesting, I don't know if gimmick is the right word, but let's just say like, there's an interesting point to the movie, but when you sit down and kind of look at it, it's kind of like, well, is that the best point to be making? Like in this, the time we're in right now?
Yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like there's definitely some heated debates online, because I had a quick look, because you were running like 10 minutes late, so on that 10 minutes I was just googling or looking up conversations on the movie, seeing what people were saying on the interwebs, and there was some heated debates about people discussing this particular thing we're alluding to here, and the intentions of the movie, and maybe like the political beliefs of the director, and things like that, and like, is there something here? Is it just like, is there an intentional thing? Is it poor taste? Is it just like the writing fell flat and didn't understand? Like, it was not that it was an accident per se, but just that it didn't understand the ramifications of what it was doing, kind of thing. That's a debate we can have once we're in spoilers, which I think we'll get to fairly quickly, because I don't know how much we can talk about this without it, but. It is really solidly done for the most part.
Right, yeah.
That's the weird thing here, is that it's pretty well directed. It has a good sense of pacing for most of the film. I will say the main swerve, I do think, wasn't that surprising. For one reason or the other. I almost think everyone saying "go in cold" is almost almost set me up for the exact thing that it ended up doing.
Well, I mean, that's exactly it. Because if you keep telling people like, "Oh, don't look anything up, don't look anything up," it's like, okay, well, as soon as I'm watching it now, I'm expecting something to be like out of the ordinary or there to be a twist.
And there's not a lot of like things in the movie, right? There's not a lot of characters. There's not a lot of places. There's not only so many things that could be swerved on us. And yeah, so I will say that almost like everyone's saying, "Oh, don't go in cold, go in cold," actually made it really clear. Like there was only one big thing that could have been like off versus what we thought early in the movie. So because of that, I think that also is a bit of a hindrance in the terms of the public reception. But I mean, as far as anything else goes, like I do think the scene to scene especially since like a lot of the early stuff, there's like scenes with almost no dialogue where it's just a chase sequence where it's just a car chase, it's just like chasing through the woods or whatever it is, and that stuff is done really well and it looks pretty good. So take that for what you will. Like it feels like a movie that could be better with a few changes and could be something that we're gushing about with those few changes.
Yeah,
but the things that need changed are maybe a bit of a big asterisk on your potential enjoyment of this. And I think for some people it's going to be a really big asterisk where like, oh, this is actually just like a complete movie killer, depending on how you feel by the time you get to the end. So
I will say at the very least, at least it's interesting. Like I'd rather be mixed about something, but kind of, be like, oh, it's taking swings and doing this and that, and there's a discussion to be had versus just like, something that's just very dull and like, it's like whatever, we don't have much to say about it. So at least it's doing something,
Yeah, no, there's truth in that. I think it's clear from the tone we're having here that neither of us were kind of blown away and feel like, oh yeah, this is like one of the best movies of 2024, because I don't think I feel that way ultimately.
No, I mean, again, I'm not negative. Like I still enjoyed watching it, but it probably is a lot of the hype too. Like again, hearing people say that it's like their favorite of the year, like really sets me up. So, and that's not the movie's fault. You can't really blame them, but it's again, there's lots of expectations and hype going in. Like if it was just a random movie that I came across on Shudder and then just threw it on, I'd probably be like, oh wow, like this is, I wasn't expecting this. This is pretty cool. But when you're like, all right, let me sit down to watch like potentially one of my favorite movies of the year, and you're just kind of like, oh, okay, so that's it. It feels like a bit more of a letdown than something that was just like, some random bad movie or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing. Like, I'm not saying that the movie like necessarily is like super disappointing, but it's disappointing that it wasn't like the like the expected kind of home run that we thought it might be.
Yeah, it's so funny because like a lot of the tricks that it tries to pull, and kind of like when you kind of what you're talking about when you're saying it's maybe a little up its own ass, like. I don't have a problem with a movie having chapter titles, and I don't have a problem with a movie doing kind of like, POV shots during the conversation that have like harsh edits, and I don't mind a movie doing, the fade to black and white at the end, or like, just all these little things. But you add them all up together, and then you at the start of the movie say this was shot in 35mm. It does give a vibe. It does give a vibe of like we're trying really hard to be something, and it's almost like you could just be the thing, right, and it would feel more confident than announcing you're the thing, and that's and I don't just mean the announcement of the 35mm film like that. I mean that's obviously a big thing because it's glaring at the start, but it's almost like I mean, yeah, it's like trying to be cool versus just being cool.
Exactly.
And it's kind of dipping into that trying too hard at points. And all movies that are cool try to be cool, obviously. It didn't just happen by accident. It takes a lot of effort to make a movie. But it just maybe dips into that, past that line a little bit.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you compare it to Tarantino. Like, generally, I usually like most of Tarantino's films. So, like, I don't know if it sounds hypocritical or something to be like, okay, well, why is that get a pass versus
I don't think
like this? But
I don't think it is hypocritical, though, because like, so much of movie making is execution. And yeah, like, you can say Tarantino's doing a bunch of nerdy film stuff because he grew up watching movies and he wants to put all these references, or not even references, but just like all these inspirations, or, you know, he wears them all on his sleeve, right? And it's very much just like a part of his style, and all of his films are like that. But in the same way that when someone tries to do David Lynch's tone, but it's not David Lynch, it feels a little bit hokey. When other people try to do Quentin Tarantino, it feels like, yeah, but you're not Quentin Tarantino, so it feels a little bit off. Yeah, it was a little bit hokey. And I'm not even saying this feels hokey per se, but it just, you know, like, I'm just sort of tying this into the conversation we're having for like how hard it really wants to be this cool little indie movie that we're all raving about. And I think at the end of the day, I would rather the end of the script was just better.
Yeah, no, I'm, you know, a little surprised we're on the same page, because I really wasn't sure how you feel.
You were worried this was going to be Cuckoo too, were you? No, Cuckoo was much better than this. I will. I'll start dying that hill.
But no, I mean, that's I do think it's kind of interesting that we seem to be on the same page, and I'm curious how maybe our listeners can let us know in the comments and stuff. But I'm curious if a lot of other people felt the same way, because again, I mostly saw like a lot of raves and stuff from people when this was coming out. So I don't know if we're in the minority or not.
It seemed pretty, like, it seems like there's a lot of positivity, but it did seem like there's a fairly vocal amount of people kind of veering towards where we're at, or even further where they're harshly against this and they think it's just problematic, which is, you know, a conversation to have. So I think without further ado, we just have to say spoilers and get into it, because I really don't know what else to talk about without doing that. So let's just do it. Spoilers for Strange Darling. You have been warned. If you wish to see it unspoiled, pause now and go and watch the movie.
So I know, like, this would take too much work, but it would be kind of funny if you just like inserted like a chapter title and then we just jump to like our final thoughts and then
jump back and jump around. Yeah. I don't want to move things around. Maybe if I'm feeling saucy, I'll do just like a couple of chapter titles for a laugh, but I'm not rearranging the discussion, Tim. Thank you very much. That said, though, I feel like we're going to start here towards the end, if I'm honest, with the first thing I want to talk about. Let me just sip my beverage and enjoy it while my big kahuna burger goes down.
Well, while you're sipping that, like, did you find it odd that like this is what, at least like the third movie that just ends with like kind of a long shot of like a woman in a car for like last year?
Okay, so without spoiling other movies, I suppose, assuming it's not a spoiler, I'm thinking In a Violent Nature.
Right.
Okay, what's the other one that I'm not thinking of?
Well, I mean, I guess like it wasn't as long a scene, but I mean, basically that was like Cuckoo, right? Like, I mean... Oh, yeah,
kinda. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, maybe that one just stuck out because we just did it recently, but I'm like, okay, a lot of movies from last year are just like ending with women in cars.
You say recently. For the people listening, we recorded the Cuckoo review yesterday.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any more recent. All right, so we have to talk. So I guess like... So you don't actually see any sexual assault in this movie, so I'll make that clear for anyone who like is sensitive to that. But the subject is obviously something that comes up in a couple of different ways. In one way, early on in the story, because I feel like when I refer to the story here, I want to make this clear that unless I state otherwise, I'm referring to the events happening chronologically rather than how they're presented in the movie, just to keep it easy to talk about. But obviously the movie presents things in a different order, so just keep that in mind as we're talking here. So early on in the actual story, it's like, okay, it's a man and a woman, or two main characters. They've met each other at a bar or whatever, but they've arrived at a motel and they're in the car and they're talking about stuff. And it kind of intercuts with them in the motel room. And it turns out that she has this kink, right? One of the first little swerves the movie does is that it seems like he's getting violent. And because we've already seen him pursue her, because the scenes are out of order, we think, oh, he's a serial killer. She's this potential victim and she's trying to run away. And because we have that in our heads already, when he starts like getting violent with her and like choking her and slapping her and getting kind of intimidating, it seems like, oh, this is him turning. This is where he's starting to reveal who he really is. But then it turns out that there's a safe word, and it turns out that she asked for all this. She wanted all this. This is her kink, right? Which is a thing. People are into, the whole, S&M and, consensual, non-consent, all that. Like, I know it's a thing. Like, it's absolutely a thing.
There's actually kind of like two, like fake outs, because at first, it just starts with him, like, it just cuts to him straight up choking her. And then, like, after a while, she's kind of like, okay, like, do it, like, harder, or like, let's, like, stop for a second. So, oh, okay, they're trying to do some, like, rough stuff, whatever. And then they talk about it a bit more. And then, like, it seems like they're going to stop or he's going to leave or something. But then he, like, kind of comes back and, like, puts her, like, starts holding her down again and is like, no, I'm going to do this or whatever. And then it starts getting really intense. And that's when the safe word.
Yeah, it basically presents it as it starts off like he's trying to do this thing for her that she's asked for. And then, like, she says, oh, this isn't working, you're not good at it, and, like, almost, like, pisses him off, and then he gets angry, and then kind of gets seriously into it, and then you're like, oh, then she has the safe word, and it's like, it flashes back to that point, to her explaining that she wants this, and that she wants this, nothing but the safe word will make him stop, and he agrees to it. And again, this entire time we're under the impression that he is the dangerous killer. Because the big twist here is that no, she's the killer. She's the one who's dangerous. That's what the movie's going to do. So, right, and we get all this stuff in the motel and all that, right? So that's the first way it comes up, is the idea of her having this kink, and the idea that we assume as the audience that he is the bad guy because he's the guy, right? And
and then also, sorry, but I think it's kind of easy to forget, but the movie actually starts like with a little like narration talking about like it's
Joe, it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre opening. It's there's a serial killer. This is the events of 2018 to 2020 when a serial killer went from this state to this state and killed numerous people, but it never mentions the gender of the killer though. No. It never says
so it goes like right from that to like a girl like running in the woods being chased by a guy like with a shotgun or whatever.
So it's like, okay, right. So it's, and I think like I like this. It's the same way that I really like something like Under the Skin, which is a great movie. Is this idea that like if you have like a female serial killer, she can prey upon the conventions and this idea that men think they're safe because men are always the dangerous ones. And that's even the conversation they have in the car before she reveals what her kinks are. She's saying, hey, do you realize the sort of risk I'm taking by like coming out here with a guy like you? Like there's the reason women like casual sex. The problem is that every time we consider doing it, we have to consider the idea that you're also a murderer. Like that's the concern. And he's like, oh, I never thought about it like that. So it really presents this idea of like, okay, men don't even think about it because they think, oh, like if anyone's going to be dangerous, it's going to be the man. So we don't have to worry about the woman. And then she preys on that expectation, right? And I was fine with this stuff coming up early. And it wasn't even like I was thinking, oh, this is going to be saying something deep or it's going to be like exploring this theme. It's just, oh, this is a cool way of a killer using her tools at her disposal to be a killer, right? I'm completely fine with that on a surface level way. It doesn't need to like be saying anything grand about it. But when this theme really comes back up again, much later in the movie, right? When he has found her and he's got her handcuffed to the freezer and she ends up killing him at that point. This is much later in the film, and she bites his neck and it ends up killing him, and he's like lying there and she's pulling the body towards him, trying to get his keys for the handcuffs, but he's already called, because I think by this point we know he's a cop of some kind or like a sheriff deputy, and he's called a sheriff to come and like deal with this situation. Like he's got himself into a mess. So these two cops show up, right? The sheriff and deputy show up, And this is the scene where this really like comes into full force, and this is arguably where I think for most people the movie kind of maybe veers like off the path, if you will.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm fine with the first part of it. The first part of it is like she hears people coming, and she thinks on her feet, and she like pulls down the back of her trousers to expose her ass, and starts crying to make it look like she was defending herself in a potential attack. Again, I have no problem with that on its own, because it's like, okay, she's evil. She's using like what she has in front of her to try and get herself out of the jam. Seeing how she thinks on her feet is potentially part of the fun here. Admittedly, there's some holes in her story here, because like he is fully dressed like right now.
Yeah.
But you know, whatever. The problem comes though when the two cop characters come in. So you've got the older male sheriff and you've got a younger female cop, and their dialogue is pretty atrocious in this scene. Now, because this is the thing, Tim, you could have had him say, right, we can't just assume anything, we have to wait and like get back up and assess what this scene is. And she's like, no, she's a victim, we have to help her. You could have that be the subtext here, but not say it blatantly, and it would make sense, and you'd understand that the young woman's motivations here are fueled by the fact that she's just instantly assuming this woman's a victim, and that would be fine. But instead...
Which most people would do, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah, understandable, right? Yeah. But instead, they talk about it out loud, and she says, hey, we have to help her, and he's like, no, we have to make sure, we don't know who the victim is yet. Like, he says that line, and then she's like... just because I've got a vagina, you're not listening to me. And this is and like, okay, all right, movie. Like, what are you doing with this?
I don't understand. Like, it's way too much, and man, it really feels like just bad instincts. If they like was like, oh no, I really want to like overplay this and stuff, because like you said, no, it would have worked so much better just, you know, playing it more subtly. The audience will understand like the implications and everything, and you know, character motivations. But it's like, no, we have to make them saying like the most like, you know, overt text like possible. But it's it's like really bad, and like it makes you like, you know, not like, you know, like the woman cop, because we know that, like, you know, this woman is
we know we know she's wrong, but obviously her instincts here are right. But the way it's written is really trying to paint her as the idiot, and the problem is the outcome to this, where when they take her to the car and they're driving with her in the back seat, when the lady, the main character, ultimately does like sort of pull out the little gun that she got from the dead cop, the demon character, Kelly Gallner's character. This is weird. This weird lady and the demon. Like that again. Remember, that's what they're titled as, right? Yeah. But when she pulls out a gun and it turns out that she is the bad guy, the older cop just sort of like looks over at his like young female partner and just mutters the line "stupid bitch," as if this is your fault. You did this to us. And then he ultimately is killed, you know, at the end of all this by the lady. And it's like, this just, everything about this just painted this like, that female cop was in the wrong for, you know, believing the victim in the scene and going like, it just, everything about it paints the smart man cop. He was smart enough to not just assume that, but because he had to listen to the woman, this led to his death, and it led to, like, I don't know, like, I think worst case scenario, this is like, oh, someone's got an opinion and they're pushing like what they think like they're just, you know, the worst like 4chan 8chan asshole incel kind of attitude towards sexual assault. And then best case scenario, the writing here is just bad, and like he just didn't know how this was going to sound, but I feel like that's given some benefit of the doubt. So I really don't know, Tim.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure the director's probably talked about it somewhere. So I'm interesting. I'd be interested to see what they have to say. But yeah, like ultimately, it's kind of like, what is the message of the movie? Because at first it's like, okay, well, you're playing with perceptions, and it's kind of like, oh, like, you know, maybe not everything isn't you know, as clear cut as it seems, like right away when you're just assuming, oh, that's the victim and that's the killer. Which, I mean, already, like, there could be like problems there, but whatever, at least it's a bit more interesting. But by the time you get to this point in the movie, it sounds like the message is just like, aren't women stupid or something? It's like, what are you trying to say?
I mean, I think it's worse than that. It's like, aren't women stupid, and aren't they going to kill us all, like, kind of thing.
Are they like what do you call it, like manipulative and like lying and stuff? It's like, strange.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it not having a message, and early on I didn't necessarily think it did. I think it was just using the themes to kind of set up your expectations and explain why characters fell for her trap. And I think that's okay on its own. You can have an evil female villain, like, that's totally fine. But the way all this cop stuff is handled towards the end of the movie just kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It feels like it's poking at it, and I feel like some people are going to like see these scenes, like the wrong kind of people, and be cheering because this is showing
exactly
what will happen if we listen to women, kind of thing. And I just like
like, that's the thing. Even if there was like some intention to, like, I don't know, like maybe the guy is trying to be like satirical in some way, or be like, oh, I'm gonna go so over the top or something. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's what he's doing, but you never know. Maybe there's something like that for the benefit of a doubt. But even if that was the case, like, there's still going to be the wrong people that take that message, from it.
Yeah. And then the problem is, though, is that even just tonally, it feels like it's taken a bit of a turn from the rest of the movie, which was so quiet and kind of playing things close to the chest and whatever.
Yeah, like the other characters never really like talked like that. Like,
no. They're always talking around things, like when the two characters are flirting in the earlier parts of the story. But once you get to here, these two characters, the way they talk just does not feel like it fits the rest of the movie. So that's a problem before you even get to the more problematic side. But like, I just, again, I really don't think that there's a problem in like a female villain using sexuality and using expectations that other characters are going to have to manipulate them. I have no problem with that, right? I don't want to spoil it, but there's like a movie I kind of want to bring up here, but it's a big twist to bring up that there's a female villain in it, so I'm not going to do it. But right, but like,
is it one we did on the show, or
no? Because it's not a horror movie.
It's not a horror movie.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right, but. So there's nothing wrong with that conceptual idea, and like to say, oh, you can never have a woman be like a sadistic villain, that would be bullshit in its own right, because like, of course they can. Women can be killers too, equal rights, right? I'm not promoting it though. Don't get me wrong. Don't kill anyone. Like, murder's wrong, but you can kill someone if you wanted to.
Yeah. We need like more like weirdo freak female villains in horror movies.
Yeah, for sure. I'm all about it, and using like, because again, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the idea of a femme fatale, right? Not that that's what this is, but like that's kind of like the classic idea of it, right? Is like the sexy chick who'll like lure you into a trap, and maybe there's like some problematic kind of like societal reasons why that was such a trope early on in the days of film, before like we maybe had more complex characters, that was maybe the one type of like interesting character that a woman could play back in the 40s was the femme fatale. So there's probably discussions to have there, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the idea in a vacuum.
Yeah, like that first movie where that like sexy female train is coming at the screen.
I mean, hear me out. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it starts scratching away at a subject that's obviously very serious, and the idea of like believing a victim, and it kind of treats it with this blunt force like idea that, oh, under no circumstance should they have just believed her. And it's so weird for the audience, because we know everything that just happened. We know that she is the bad guy. We know that she's the one who should be feared. But the way the other characters talk about it just make it feel like we should think this other woman's an idiot for even like trying to believe her. I don't know. Like,
it's like a a mix of like the woman or the female cop or lady cop from from DC. Uh, is she's just so like over the top, and then the guy is also like being so like level-headed and like smart about it, bringing up all these good points. Like, it's also like trying to make it like seem like she's worse in comparison, because it's like, hey, listen to this guy. The man, the older man knows what he's talking about. I don't know. It's like such a weird choice from like a movie that up until then had you're mostly going along with.
Yeah, all it would have taken is you just have these two cop characters, and you just have to have them like be hesitant, but ultimately kind of agree to help her, and like, because it's completely fine that she outsmarts them. That's fine. She's the intelligent villain who thinks on her feet. She's allowed to be that smart. She's allowed to trick them and trick them even in this way. But the debate between the two cops just illuminates it in a very specific light that makes it all feel kind of poor taste.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I wonder how it would have played out if you had like the same conversation, but you made it like you gave the female cop's lines to the male cop, or like if that would be kind of an interesting swerve or something. I mean, that would work better.
If the dialogue's is bad, then I don't know if it would have helped that much. Although it would have been, it might have alleviated a little bit of the problematic part of it, but I don't think it would have alleviated it feeling like a bad scene. If that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, we'll leave that there. But it definitely just kind of. And I think that to top it all off, though, like the way the movie ends after this, because this is actually the build up to the ending, which is ultimately just that she does end up killing the male cop after she's made him drive for a bit. She says that sometimes she sees demons, basically, instead of people, and then she shoots the cop, and then she ends up getting picked up by a sort of older woman in the street who drives up to her. And the movie ends with like her pulling her gun out, and then it turns out that the driver has her own gun and just shoots her in self-defense, and she sort of lays there dying as the movie fades to black. So it just kind of, I also just kind of feel like this ending was a bit underwhelming. Like, when she killed Gallner's character, it kind of felt like, well, the whole movie's been about them two and like him pursuing her.
It's a game of cat and mouse, and then once the cat is out of the picture, it's kind of like, well, I'm not sure what we're doing here. Or
is it the mouse that's out of the picture, technically? But
good question.
Yeah. But yeah. So I guess that's the other thing with the cop scene, is that the movie kind of pivots to a whole new thing there, because like the entire thing up until that point is when the movie jumping between the long chase that they're having, that started on the road, went through the woods, ended up at this house with this old couple, including Ed Begley Jr. As the husband, and flashing back to the stuff in the car in the motel room when they were flirting and talking about the kinks and all that, building up to her ultimately tricking him, like he's thinking he's taking cocaine, but he's actually taking something else, and it makes him
ketamine.
Yeah, it makes him just basically not catatonic, but he's like, he's got no control, he's foaming at the mouth, and she's like carving her initials or whatever into his body.
It carves EL, which I guess is electric lady.
That's
later,
her.
She says.
Yeah, that's her killer name. Which usually the killers get that from the press, so I wonder if she only started doing that after they named her, or did she leave a note in the first victim saying, "I am the electric lady. Call me that, or I'll kill twice as many people."
So I will say, like, the very, very end where it's just like this long shot on her face and slowly fades to black. That was like another instance where, I mean, maybe at that point I just had a bad taste in the movie or whatever, but that was like another thing where I'm just kind of like, come on, this feels like, again, you're just trying too hard, like, this long shot, then it's slowly, fading to black, or black and white or whatever as she dies, and I don't know, it didn't really work for me.
Yeah, no, I definitely, because I think it's a combination of things. I think on one hand, you've had this little stretch that felt like it was maybe touching onto some problematic elements of the themes, and then you also have the fact that it's kind of underwhelming as a conclusion because it feels like it's not got like a big ending to go to. But then maybe also on top of that, you just, you kind of have the I don't know, the pretentionness of it, of the fade to black, as she's dying, and maybe you've also at this point realized that the movie's not really saying a whole lot. Like, it is, like, ultimately it's just meant to be a fun, like, thriller horror movie. It's meant to be like there's twists and there's turns and you can get some excitement out of it. And for the most part, it's actually pretty decent at being that. And it doesn't have to be deeper to be good. Like, it can just be good at that.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about something else that's very specific, Tim.
Okay.
I want to talk about the second most deadly thing in this movie after her.
Okay.
I'm talking about the breakfast that the old couple make at this farmhouse, which the movie really focuses on. They put an entire stick of butter into the pan to make a few eggs. They make some pancakes. They make some sausages, which I thought was also already a bit of a weird combination. But you see how they put it together, right? So they put like one pancake on, they put the eggs on, they put the sausage on, and then they poured something on there that I didn't quite understand what it was. It was like a dark liquid.
I thought it was syrup. No.
Well, no, they put syrup on at the end, like on top.
Oh.
Once they put the top pancake on.
Oh, okay.
But it was like it was like a metal tin that they poured. It was like dark something with chunks in it, and I don't know what it was.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
But even discounting that part,
yeah.
Sausages, eggs inside pancakes with syrup all over it. Like, are they trying to just have a heart attack by noon? Like, what is this?
God, I'm trying to think. What was it called?
And on top of that, they put cream on top as well afterwards when they sit down.
Have you never had a McGriddle from McDonald's? It's kind of the same thing.
Look, I mean, I don't eat egg, but what I will say is, yes, look, for years I didn't understand the whole bacon and pancakes is what I'm trying to say, right? Turned out that was pretty good. The syrup goes quite well with the bacon, right? I've taken back any slander I may have said in the past about Americans on that subject. However, I don't think syrup with sausages in pancakes makes much sense to me.
I mean, maybe it's not as much of a thing over there, but that's definitely something people do here.
Really? Okay.
I'll vouch for it. I think it's pretty good.
But syrup mixing with egg? I mean, I don't like eggs anyway, but like the syrup mixing with the egg yolk, that's a bit weird, no?
I do like eggs, but yes, I would probably keep eggs separate from that. I think syrup does go well with like salty meat, which it's something that I didn't like necessarily do when I was younger. I feel like I came to it like a little later in life. But I mean, yeah, like for sweet stuff or salty meats, I think it works.
Okay, but cream with sausages.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't wouldn't do that.
And then a strawberry on top. I'm like, is this a breakfast or a dessert? Make your mind up, people, right? It's one or the other.
Now, I'm going to assume then that you also never had like chicken and waffles at all.
That I'm sure there's probably some places here that have like, oh hey, we do some American things at this restaurant that you could probably find it at, but it is definitely not a common thing here.
Again, like not a combination I grew up with. I think it is more of a southern thing, but kind of is starting to spread out more. But that's actually a really good combo too.
Do you put syrup on that too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So again, not something I would have thought either would have been, go that well together, but it is actually surprisingly good.
Yeah. The problem is though, is they're so unhealthy because like half of it's a dessert. So I feel like it's like, well, you claim this is a breakfast thing, but it seems like a pretty bad breakfast from a health perspective.
Yeah, I mean, my headcanon would be either like this is Sunday morning and this is like their special like.
Yeah, it's a special one day a week treat. Yeah.
Yeah, because like we usually like we'll get like fast food or something on the weekend as like a little treat. The week's done, let's have some fun or whatever. either that or they're just like so old they're like, who cares? Like we don't have much time left anyway. Might as well enjoy it.
Oh, for the couple in this, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, they're just like, whatever, we're going to be dead soon anyway, let's just enjoy whatever time we have left, because this is a ludicrously big breakfast they make for themselves. So, yeah, it's actually other than just setting up the kind of kooky characters they are before she encounters them. Because keep in mind, because of the order we see things, we already know that he's going to die by the time we meet them properly. Because we see her, but the surprise is by the end of this section is that it's not the guy that's killed him, it's her, because she bashes his head over with the phone, because he wants to call the police, and she's like, no, let's not do that. So, I mean, at this point we've kind of figured out she's the bad guy based on like the other scenes we've already had, but this was kind of like, oh, that's like, okay, she's just brutally murdering other people. It's not just him. Because I thought, oh, maybe there's like a specific reason why she's targeting this character, you know? Maybe there's like a revenge thing or something. And of course, this is like, oh no, she is actually just a psychopath who is killing multiple people.
Yeah, I kept expecting it to set up like more and more twists because like I kind of thought that, okay, so this is what the movie is going to do. It's going to like constantly be playing with your perception and be like, oh, see, now she seems like the bad guy, but then there'd be like, another scene where like, oh, wait a minute, actually, like there's a reason why she did that or something, but that's not the case.
I thought it was going to be that he's still a serial killer, but she's hunting the serial killer or something.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But obviously that's not where it goes. It just kind of goes down this path where he's hunting her because she has injured him. And, because she like we said, she carves her name into him, but he's got like that secret pistol on his leg that he's able to kind of fire at her. So, because later in the timeline, we know she's missing an ear and that she's bleeding from there. And we assume, oh, a killer cut that off. But it's actually, he shoots her and he just happens to hit her ear because he can't aim for shit because he's so doped up and whatever. So, like... Yeah, honestly, it's a weird one to talk about because I feel like a lot of the early chase stuff is pretty solid, but there's not a whole lot to say about it in terms of like a sequence of events, because it's like, okay, so he's chasing the car and his truck, he shoots at her, it makes the car crash, he chases her into the woods and she's trying to be quiet and sneak around, and she eventually gets to this house with this old couple. I mean, I just summed it up there in like, what, 20 seconds? But that's like 15, 20 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something to say about the movie that, again, like I think this stuff is handled well enough, but aside from like talking about like, the twists and the ending and stuff, there isn't really much to discuss about the movie. Like, yeah, it's just kind of like, chase scene, and then they might cut to like a, dialogue scene between them, which, the conversations between them, like I didn't mind. Like I thought, they're both good performers and stuff, so there was stuff there.
Yeah, the performance,
not much to talk about.
Yeah, the performances definitely like made those scenes kind of more riveting than perhaps they would have been, because it felt like there was a good banter back and forth between them. The pacing of the dialogue was good, and even the simple idea that she's wearing a wig because she has like the red or pink hair in all those scenes with him, and she eventually takes that off after she's like knocked him out. And it's like, hey, even that was a perception thing. Like, that wasn't her real hair. And we know that because we've seen her later in the timeline with the blonde hair already. But it just, again, it plays into this idea that she isn't quite what she seems, that there's secrets to be revealed here. But I guess you're right in that I was expecting, not necessarily another reveal that said that he was still the bad guy or whatever, but I was expecting something else more juicy at the end other than just... oh, she almost gets away, but a civilian defending herself. Which, I mean, they do kind of foreshadow the moment a little bit, because when they're, like, when she's running out of the hotel, or the motel, and, like, Gallner's shooting at her, she plays the victim again when she gets onto the balcony, because, like, the neighboring, like, room, that this guy comes out and says, what the hell's going on? And she's like, help me, he's got a gun. And then he pulls out his big, like, revolver and says, I got one too. And I think that was like maybe like foreshadow the ending with the woman who goes to help her.
Okay.
Because she pulls out a gun and then the woman like pulls out her own gun and shoots her. I think that was like or even the fact that when she runs into the old couple and she says, "Hey, have you got a gun here?" and they're like, "No, we've only got bear spray," and she's like, "You're mountain people, aren't you supposed to have guns?" And at the end, someone who lives in the mountains, presumably, who picks her up, does indeed have a gun.
Yeah. I will say that line did make me laugh. The guy had a really good delivery too. He's just like, oh, he has a gun. He's like, so do I. But then, I don't know if I missed something, but we don't really find out what happens to him, right? Like,
no, you would think he would go and investigate the room next door.
I guess we just never really see much that's not from like her point of view. Like, I mean, I guess we see like, some scenes with the demon, if you will, like chasing her down, but it's usually in the context of like her also being in that same area.
There's a couple things, because like we see him on his own in the room after she leaves, where he like gets her cocaine and uses it to try and like wake himself up. That's right. Basically. I mean, I'm not sure the intricacies of like that working or not. I mean, I know it's maybe an upper. I don't know if it works quite like that, but I'll just accept it. I'll accept the movie knows what it's talking about here.
One drug cancels the other out.
It's like getting a shot of adrenaline to like, like some movies will use that to like, oh, now you've got super strength for 10 minutes. Honestly, it's actually kind of surprising how little I've got to say about the first like 45 minutes, just purely because like it is pretty straightforward, even though it's really stylistic and well done in how it's presented. Because there's one part of it where he's like hunting through the house looking for her, and this is before we know she's a bad guy still, and she's hiding in the freezer, but he keeps like shooting the different cabinets thinking she's hiding in those, and then he eventually comes back and finds her, and that's where that chapter ends. But that's all that chapter is. It's him looking through the house. We see the dead body of the old man, but it's mostly him just sneaking about and her trying to like be quiet inside what turns out to be the freezer.
Did I miss something? Did they ever explain what was going on with when they get to that house? It sounds like there's like I don't know if it's like a radio show or like a podcast or something that's like blaring on these speakers. Like,
they didn't explain it per se, but so when she arrives at the house, there's like a loudspeaker talking about Sasquatches, I think, and it's basically it's almost like you're hearing something from a museum that's saying, hey, this is the part of the country where the Sasquatch like hunts its prey or something. It sounds kind of like that. And when she's talking to the old couple, later on when we come back and see the next part of it, they're saying, hey, are you sure a man did this to you? And it kind of sounds like they're implying, wait, you sure it wasn't a Sasquatch? So I think the joke is that they're like believers of the Sasquatch, and they think they exist in these woods, and that they think this might have been what attacked her. And I think that ties into what was playing on the radio before.
Yeah, I guess my thing is that like whenever something was kind of odd or stood out, I always assumed that we would get like a flashback or like a previous chapter that would like explain the setup of that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because if we're playing with this narrative where it's like, okay, we're going back and forth, you think kind of the interesting thing to do there is that like, oh, we're going to see stuff that's like the punchlines to these jokes, and then when we go back, we'll see the setup. So whenever there's odd stuff like that, I kept thinking like, okay, at some point we'll see what that is. Like maybe like Kyle Gallner's character will run across someone that starts playing that or something. You know what I mean? But
now, Tim, be honest. No. Be honest with me. Was part of you hoping that this movie would end with a Sasquatch showing up?
I mean, I feel like that for most movies, like even ones that don't bring up squatches. I kind of hope secretly that one will show up at some point.
To be fair, they only ever say squatches, which I assume meant Sasquatch. If it means something else, then I apologize. I'm not up in the terms here.
I mean, since it's old people talking, I would assume Sasquatches. If it was like a young person, I'd be like, okay, I don't even want to guess what Squatch is. It could be an app. It could be
sex act.
A diss, or exactly.
Squatch me, baby. I don't know what that means, and don't tell me if it does mean something. Apparently Giovanni Ribisi does a voice in this. I'm assuming he was the voice doing the Sasquatch thing, because the opening narrator is a separate voice actor. So,
okay. Did he do the like cinematography or something, because I feel like he like did like something weird like that on a recent movie.
Hey mate, let me click on the more credits and we'll find out, shall we? I assume he might be in the. He's a producer, which makes sense. Oh, you're right, director of photography. Hey, to be fair, the cinematography was one of the movie's strengths. So
absolutely, yeah,
I can't fault it. Although I wonder if he's the one who's like, hey, tell them we did it on film. Tell them, go on, put it in the credits. I dare you.
That would seem like something like one of those like, Hollywood actors that they're so into film would do.
Yeah, that's a really interesting pivot for an actor. Like, so obviously you get actors who go into directing, but it's the cinematography is like a more technical skill. So it's really interesting that he's went that way.
Yeah, that's why it popped in my head, because I remember people talking about it being like, oh, that's kind of strange that he's doing that.
He's got a few credits. Admittedly, all the other ones that he's got for cinematography are all music videos, so this is the first movie he did as a cinematographer. But that's interesting. It's something he was pursuing. Apparently he's in Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. That's the Kevin Costner directed thing.
Over a 3-hour thing. I started watching a little bit of it, and I was like, I can't do this. It's too much.
To be fair, Chapter 1's 3 hours. Chapter 2 is also 3 hours, 10 minutes.
Okay.
So it's 6 hours, Tim, all in.
Dear Lord.
Yeah.
I'm an old man, but I'm not like old enough to like start watching stuff like that in Yellowstone.
No,
no. I feel like I still got a few more years until I just become that kind of old man.
I don't think I'll ever be that old, man. I think that will always sound really boring to me, if I'm honest. But hey, maybe I'm being harsh.
Maybe you're being strange, darling.
Very good, Tim. Very good.
There's not much else to talk about. Like, I did think it was a nice little flourish. Like, earlier in the movie, she looks at Kyle Gallner's character, and she just sees like this like kind of, it's like almost like a little like red scribble outline or something on him. That was kind of a weird thing. So then when she later brings up sometimes she sees demons, I was like, oh, okay, that was kind of a cool way to show that. And then I don't think we mentioned that later on she does end up killing the like old hippie because she runs over to like the cop car and she's in the middle of the road.
Yeah, it's when the cops are driving her in the back seat. Arguably, this is the only reason why she even like kills the cop is because this woman runs up and sees her and like freaks out and she just shoots her in the head, and that's how it escalates. I mean, maybe she would have held him at gunpoint later anyway, but that's what motivates it in the moment is the hippie wife coming up and seeing her because she knows that she killed her husband. So. Yeah, it's a weird one because like I think it's really solidly made, and it's just kind of a shame that the script kind of just gets a little bit off the rails, doesn't have more of an interesting climax, but worse than that, arguably, obviously, is the weird like it's one thing to bring up a very serious topic and not have much to say about it, like depending on how you use it, but it's another thing to bring it up and have characters sort of like make you feel like, oh, are you trying to say something bad here? Is there a message here, and the message is something that I can't possibly align with? I'm not really sure. I don't want to just jump to that assumption, but the scene did stick out to me.
Absolutely. Like even if maybe they didn't intend it that way, I mean the fact that we're taking it that way, it does not bode well.
Part of me wonders, like, what if the scene was either 2 men or 2 women cops, right? So you had 2 people of the same gender. Like, the dialogue would still be bad, don't get me wrong. And especially if they still do the thing where the one who is the skeptic then, like, says, oh, the other one's an idiot for believing her. Like, that would still leave a bad taste. And I don't like, it's made a little bit worse that it's a man and a woman, but I still think if it was 2 men and, like, the one who was adamant, no, they shouldn't, like, trust her, said, oh, you're a dick or a stupid dick for like believing her, like that would still be just as problematic, really. It's a bit harsher because he said it to a woman, but it would still feel bad. But I do wonder if it would feel a bit more nuanced if you had two people of the same gender being conflicted amongst themselves, like, oh, do we trust this scene for what it looks like, or is there like a sign that something is untrustworthy and we should pursue that maybe more as I don't know, prudent detectives, shall we say? But yeah, I don't know, sloppy.
It's just weird that like you kind of wonder, all right, did no one like say anything, like, you know, like because it's the director like also wrote it, right? Like I'm pretty sure it's, you know, his baby through and through, but still, like, no one on set or any of the actors or something, like, no one came up and was like, yeah, I don't know, like, is this maybe the best idea? I don't know. I mean, ultimately it's his movie, so maybe even if someone did, he wouldn't care, but you know, you think someone might bring it up.
I mean, it could be a thing where maybe he's very good at justifying things, like when you ask him about it. And maybe he has spoken about this particular scene and talked about the messaging, and I don't know. But yeah, it just leaves a bit of a weird taste in the mouth. And but even ignoring that, though, I do think the ending's a little bit like, it is the worst part of the movie. It just kind of feels like it ends kind of suddenly without much of a build up and a payoff kind of thing.
I mean, so much of the movie is this woman and, you know, Kyle Gallner. So, you know, once he's out of the picture, it's kind of like,
yeah, it feels like the main,
we have?
Yeah, the main thrust of the movie's gone at that point, and it just kind of has to end some way. And part of me thought, oh, maybe it'll do something crazy to kind of like give her a big climax, but it never really does. It just kind of does the simplest, smallest thing that it can do, which is this kind of, you know, her monologuing about why she's a serial killer and before she shoots the cop, and that's basically. And I don't even have anything interesting to say, I think, about her saying what she says. Like, you know, her talking about how, oh, she used to think that, you know, it's stupid to beg for your life even if you're going to spend the rest of it in a cell, but now I understand why. And then like her little speech to the main cop at the end, where she's like, oh, you know, I see demons, blah blah blah. Like, I don't think, like, I think if we fleshed that out a little bit and we actually get a bit more into like why she's a killer, it might have done a bit more to like flesh her out and make it a bit more interesting. Not necessarily give her like a backstory that gives her like reasons for being messed up. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I want like, oh, the troubled childhood and like the abusive father who turned her into a psychopath. I just mean like a bit more context for like how she kills people, like kind of like how she feels about the people she's killing, that kind of thing. Like, you know, just get like flesh out kind of what type of psycho she is, to make it more of a character. But yeah. So I think the performance does go a long way. I think the performance is kind of helping carry it up quite a bit.
Did you recognize, like, obviously, yeah, we seen some other stuff with Kyle Gallner, but did you recognize the woman? I forget her name, Willa something. I don't know if she's been in something else.
Willa Fitzgerald is her name. I don't reckon. I'll click on her and see if I have seen anything with her on it, but I didn't recognize her by eye.
I mean, she's very good. Yeah, I'd, you know, be happy to see her in something else.
Apparently, Tim, she was in the TV series of Scream.
Oh, okay.
I watched the first episode of that and bounced off it hard, but I might have seen her in that pilot.
I mean, there's a lot of like horror stuff. Even if it sounds bad, I'll give a chance to. But I just had absolutely no interest in that.
Yeah. Well, she's in the upcoming untitled Catherine Bigelow White House thriller, so...
Okay.
You know, look for that, I guess.
Near Dark 2, Oval Office.
Don't give them ideas, Tim. Don't give them ideas. Alright, I think we're ready to rate it. Honestly, I feel this has been a weird conversation, because like, I feel like we focused on one element a lot, and then I didn't really have a ton to say about a lot of the rest of it, other than just it was stylish, it was well shot, and it was, you know, it was pretty slick in how it presented things, but maybe went a little bit too far with the, like, we want to be the next indie art house hit. Well, maybe even art house isn't the right term, just, I don't know, indie horror hit, I guess. Because even at the start, it's like, oh, Strange Darling, a thriller in 6 chapters. Like, yeah, okay, all right, movie.
Okay. Like,
all right, what's your scene of the movie, Tim?
Geez, I feel like I had an answer for this, but now I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be like anything towards the end because we talked so much about those, and then a lot of the scenes before that were, again, like we said, like they were done like pretty well, but again, like nothing's like standing out. Like, oh, that one conversation they had was so like thrilling or whatever. I would say maybe I'll give it up for the scene where she comes, she's about to he's chained up to the bed or whatever, and she's about to kill him, and then he shoots her, and and she runs out because I thought it was like a good payoff of being like, oh, okay, that's like how she got shot in her ear and stuff, and then like I said, like that one line that the cowboy guy has after that.
And she kills someone else there as well, which I didn't even mention. She runs into like the reception area of the motel, and when the woman's not locking the door or whatever, like quick enough, she ends up just stabbing her in the neck.
That's right,
and then steals the other woman's car. So I mean, yeah, we see that she is quite brutal. It's not just like, like she seems to target men, but she's not against killing a woman that's in her way if the situation calls for it. So yeah. I don't know what my favorite scene of the movie. It's kind of strange. Like, I think there's generally a good quality to most of the first half of the movie, but I don't know if any one particular scene sticks out as, oh, that was the height of it. I
mean, the breakfast scene did seem to pique your interest quite a bit.
I mean, it was the most fascinating scene for sure. I was befuddled by some of the things that were getting thrown together on a plate, but I will. It might even just be generally the opening, meaning like the chase, because it is just like a chase scene that's well shot, and just like the movie's not like muddled anything yet by like introducing any other elements to ruin it. It's just pure chase, and I think it works. So I guess I'll go with that. You've got pretty much 2 choices here, Tim. MVP of the movie.
I gotta give it up to my boy Ed Begley Jr. Who I actually do like him, but I mean, I don't think his character had much to do. Although I did like when he had to clarify that he was like, I was more of a biker than a hippie. That gave me a little chuckle. But no, I mean, I think Gallner and Ella, or Willa, Willa Fitzgerald, not Ella Fitzgerald. They both did a really good job. I don't know if it sounds like mean, but like I kind of want to. I think I'll give it to Kyle Gallner just because I'm associating more of the stuff I don't like with her character, just I guess because she's just more present in the end and stuff, which doesn't reflect on her performance or anything, but the character stuff at the end I didn't like as much, where I like Kyle Gallner's character throughout.
I think I'm going to pick her because while I obviously I agree with the sentiment, I don't think that's really a statement on her performance. If anything, her performance like keeps a lot of the scenes with her entertaining, even when the movie kind of falters in every other respect. So, I mean, I think I'll go with her. But it's a shame how kind of lukewarm we're feeling on this. Given everything.
I mean, I expected this one to be, kind of another heavy hitter. For it's like there's a reason why we're doing a lot of these movies. In such like a rapid pace, like they'll be coming out, weekly, week by week or whatever. But we've been recording a lot of episodes all at once, and we really wanted to hit like the bigger, more well-known stuff from 2024, that we haven't got around to yet. So I was expecting this one to be, kind of a front runner for, when we do like our best of list. But yeah, it just kind of like fizzled out, which is a shame.
Yeah. All right, Tim, what you rating Strange Darling?
It's tough. Like on a technical level, again, it looks very good. The performers are they're very likable, and they're doing a good job. But I guess maybe it's weird to say likable.
Yeah, likable is an odd term to use in this case. We spend half the movie thinking he's a serial killer, then we spend the last half knowing that she's a vicious serial killer.
I guess I like looking at them. They're both good looking people. So I guess there's that. And then the music's good. Like a lot of the stuff is working on a very good level. It's just that, man, that ending really brings it down. The whole messaging or possible message, whatever it's trying to say or what we're extracting from it, just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And
but I mean, best case scenario, the writing's just terrible there.
Yeah. But I mean, like the ending's an important part of the movie. Like it's hard to leave a movie feeling good if the ending is just like,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
And it's not like it was like the last 2 minutes of the ending. It was like the last, whatever, 20.
Yeah. It's a good chunk of it.
So I don't know. I am having like kind of a hard time scoring it because like I don't want to go super low, but also like I can't go too high. I'm kind of waffling between like, I don't know, a 6 and I don't know. Is a 5.5 too low? I don't know. I guess I'll give it a 6, which is like it's okay, and there's like a gimmick to it that is interesting. There's good performance and styling, but yeah, there's just some stuff that feels like it's trying too hard and weird messaging that it I guess an apt title because it's strange that for a lot of it I'm like, oh, this is really good, and then all of a sudden it's just not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess a 6 is where I'll land.
Yeah, it's tough. You rating this higher than Cuckoo is shocking to me. Now, admittedly, you rated Cuckoo so low that rating this that low would be weird as well, but still. I don't know. Yeah, a 5 feels too low just because of like how well handled in general the movie is. But I am lukewarm, so I'm kind of debating between the 5.5 and the 6. I kind of agree with that kind of general range. It probably is a 6 for me as well, but it feels like a 6 with an asterisk of like it's a 6, but it's probably a 6 that I probably never want to watch again just because. I like it's not a satisfying conclusion, and then the other elements that don't quite work, just are going to kind of drag it down. So sadly, I think this is one that's just not even going to be in conversation for us when we get to our top 10 of 2024. So,
unless we have like a little special category like biggest disappointment or something.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and check what else came out. Well, what we actually did throughout the year, because maybe there's another big disappointment. I don't remember, but
it could be. Yeah.
I'd have to go check. But all right, there you go. That's Strange Darling, everyone. Let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments and whatnot. Now I don't know what we're going to be doing next, and this is the last episode we're recording in this batch. So we had like a 2-week window to record as many episodes as possible. We got 5 done. So by the time this goes out, this will be like over a month since we recorded this.
5 plus a bonus, little bonus thing, right?
Well, yeah, but I just mean the regular episodes. The patrons know they got a thing. It's like Tim wants credit here. We did 6 recordings, Peter. Tell them we did 6.
Hey, I'm just saying that's a lot. I'm tired.
Oh yeah, it's been a heavy couple of weeks. We wanted to try and get stuff in because Tim had the window to record for a bit. Hopefully by the time this goes out, we'll have found a way to record a little bit more as well, and maybe have stuff in the ready to come after this. If there's a bit of a gap though after this episode, don't worry about it. You know.
Yeah, if there is, I don't think it'll be that long.
Yeah. So, you know, just brace yourself for the possibility that this could be the last episode for maybe a little while, you know, maybe a few weeks or a month or whatever. But we'll be back as soon as we can. And, you know, obviously keep up to date on Discord or on Blue Sky or whatever if you want to see, you know, updates or, you know, or Patreon even. I'll post updates there if I know when we're going to be back. But, yeah, so... You know, just keep an eye out, and we'll be back as soon as we can. We got more 2024 movies to get done before we do our top 10. And annoyingly, it means that, I mean, even if we don't have a gap, if we are able to have episodes out immediately after this one, we're still not going to be doing our top 10 until the middle of May, which is ridiculous. But it's just the hand we were dealt because of the stupid fires. So hey. But we'll see what we can do. So, yes, you can support the content over at Patreon, though. Patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Now, the Screams bonuses are on pause. We did do that one thing, as Tim mentioned. We did a big 2025 preview, which is, by this time this goes out, that'll be a month ago now. But that's there. All the bonuses for Screams are on pause until Tim is back into his own house and we can record consistently week to week. But there's a whole back catalogue to enjoy of bonus episodes and even more Screams videos, and there's bonus content coming from other things on the Mail Fuzz Movies channel. Me and David do a couple of bonus shows every month. So if you want to support Screams and the other shows and keep everything coming, then just think about going over to Patreon and supporting us over there. But that is us. That has been the show. So thank you very much for joining. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.